Welcome to The Longer Game, the only show that's dedicated to the future of retail. We bring on real-life people in the retail industry. We talk about their experiences, we share their stories, we apply it to what's currently going on in the market, and we look towards the future of retail. You could say it's Retail Reimagined. My name is Michael Maher. I run a customized, done-for-you service agency called Cartology that helps brands win on Amazon. Now, while my expertise stems in the Amazon field, we bring on a wide array of guests because retail is expansive. You've got e-commerce. Yes, you've got marketplaces like Amazon. You've also got brick and mortar that is evolving. You've got logistics. You've got technology, finance. There are so many aspects to retail, and it's complicated. So we're here to bring you the entire story. Do you think that you have an interesting story and you'd like to tell it on the podcast? Then go to thelongergame.com and fill out a form to be a guest on the show today. You can catch The Longer Game on any social channels: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and our website, thelongergame.com. We've got all awesome guests on this show, so that I will promise. Are you ready to hear more about the future of retail? Let's get down to business. Welcome, everyone, to The Longer Game. This is the podcast about all things retail, the future of retail. And we talk from all kinds of perspectives, point of views. We talk about Amazon. We talk about e-commerce, which is somewhat one and the same, but not exactly. We talk about retail. We talk about all things that would relate to brands that want to grow and want to lean into omni-channel. And so today with me on the podcast, I have Kimber Hines, and she's the director of social media at Smart Sites. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me, and I look forward to sharing knowledge and tips and tricks with everybody who listens.
I wish I could share knowledge. I just don't quite have it yet, but maybe I'll get there.
I mean, mine is like knowledge in my opinion, I guess, right? It's all opinion based. That's what social media kind of is in a way. So I'm going to say knowledge because it makes me feel really good.
Well, I think it probably is knowledge. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at Smart Sites and kind of how that even came to fruition? Because I think it's an interesting story.
Yeah, no, of course. So I started at Smart Sites in the summer in July of 2021 as a web and SEO project manager. So I was helping clients with their SEO initiatives, everything from content and link building to technical audits on their website, and seeing through web development projects alongside all of the teams we work with here at Smart Sites. About 6 months in, my boss had come across the information that I had a lot of experience in social media, and this was a service that Smart Sites didn't offer. You know, we pride ourselves on being a one-stop shop for marketing for clients because it's easy to have it all under one roof if you can,
Sure.
because we know your brand, we know, the ins and outs of your business and stuff. And I joined like a little chat group we had about social media and stuff. And over the next couple months, it just kind of came apparent that I was the right fit to lead this department and build this service from the ground up. So I had created everything from our processes, how we track things, how we do things, how we create content, how we work with our teams. And now I've grown over the past 2 years since it's been a department from just me doing all the social media and launching it to the public for clients and stuff like that, to a team of 5 different social media managers now that work under me. And we've even expanded that recently into 2 different things. Social SEO is a big thing we're looking into right now. It's a hot trending word. And influencer marketing as well is something we offer in our department now to our clients. So it's been a wild ride the last 2 years, that's for sure.
I guess it goes to show you that be careful about the information your boss has on you, because they might call you up to do something that you were not wanting to do. It sounds like you were pretty okay with going that direction, at least.
I was okay with it. Honestly, I didn't like social media. I was excited to get into web and SEO and kind of further my experience as a marketing professional in general. Social media has always been a love-hate relationship for me, but the difference in what I do now versus what I did in my previous roles, I was doing all the content writing, all the design work, all of the engagement by myself as a one-person show, basically. And with Smart Sites, I have teams to work with. So I'm not in the thick of every tiny little detail that goes into social media. I've got a design team that helps me with the video creation and the graphics. We have a content team who helps us write captions. We have an inbound marketing team who helps us do a lot of the engagement and the setting up of the paid promotions. So it really is like a team effort, and that makes a big difference for somebody who works in social media, because social media has a very high burnout rate for a lot of people. It's exhausting to keep up with. So
You mean
we're
as
very lucky.
the people that are working on social media, like the actual practitioners, have a high
Yeah.
burnout rate? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Social media managers in general. Like I'm in quite a few marketing groups on LinkedIn and Facebook. And, I read a lot of forums and I sign up for a lot of newsletters. In digital marketing, it has one of the highest turnover rates because it gets very difficult after a few years to keep up with the trends, always changing, always new platforms. Algorithms change what feels like every 30 seconds right now. And the constant unrealistic expectations too, sometimes from clients. Like as much as we want to help in every aspect we can, every type of digital marketing from social media to SEO to, pay-per-click advertising has expectations that need to be set in place for what those tools are utilized for. And that gets exhausting to fight every single day.
There's a lot of similarity in my world of Amazon with what you're talking about on the social media side, which is it feels like there are algorithm changes every 30 seconds, to your point. And on the Amazon side, there is a lot to keep up with. There's actually been a huge influx of new agencies just in the past, I don't know, couple of years. Whereas, 8 years ago when I started my agency, there were some, not as many as there are right now. So that's gone up significantly. But there is, in those past 8 years, there's been a huge sophistication of the amount of data that is available to you. And that, I think, is a little bit overwhelming to people because they don't know where to focus. But the basics are still really the same. I imagine that's somewhat similar on the social media side, but the how you go about implementing those basics, the execution is different. And I actually think that I'll stop there. Like the amount of information that's available now and the speed at which things happen can be very, very daunting. So I imagine that's what you're feeling on that side or social media managers are
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's just that. And what's hard for maybe people who don't have as much experience in it as myself or my team is they have all of these articles, all of this data, all of this information coming at their way, telling them about new trends, new features, this and that. And what our clients struggle with the most and that we help them with is determining what they should even pay attention to for their business, for their industry, for their audience. Like we help them weed through that, all the stuff that comes thrown at them that they read in headlines, that they see on TikTok, that they see on Facebook, and help them determine, like, does this even affect me in any way? Or should it affect me? Should I be doing this? And that's what is overwhelming to a lot of people. We have done this for long enough now that we can be like, no, this isn't going to be relevant. We can ignore this. And also understanding what's real and what's not. And I think that could go for any industry right now. Like anybody could write a blog post about the best algorithm, support systems for LinkedIn. How do you know it's true though? One thing I always like to tell my clients, as much as I would love to say that LinkedIn and Facebook and, everybody else sends me an email when they change their algorithms, like this is going to work now and this is not. No, it's a guessing game for all of us. We're just people with the same amount of information that everybody else has. But what we have the ability to do is to test different theories, understand the data and what's working and not working, to try and figure out kind of like what a new groove is when we see those algorithm changes. So it's taking that data and understanding it and making logical changes where, hiring a social media manager is worth it, basically.
One of the things that's really challenging with channel specific stuff is you don't know what you don't know. And you can read a lot, but for someone who wants to hire someone for Amazon, it can be challenging because one, they're probably being promised, we can do 10x growth. And that to me is a recipe for disaster. It creates agency burn, which I'm sure your clients have experienced on the social media side, but they don't know necessarily what the right questions are to ask. And I think a lot of people or service providers are focused on, well, let me show you what I can do. And the reality is what you can do might span across multiple problem sets. It might be the same thing, but what that person actually needs help with, maybe it's not reaching a greater audience. Maybe it's honing in on the right audience to target from the social side versus on Amazon. Maybe they are growing and they want to grow more, but they're really focused on profitability because they have a cash crunch internally. All those things make a big difference. And if you don't know those things and you're so focused on showcasing what you can do, I think you actually miss out an opportunity to really help that person. And that's what's going to keep them around is you know what's bothering them and you know how to help them get results. And then you do go out and get results.
Yeah, and that's how we approach a lot of our client accounts, to be honest. Problem versus solution. What are the problems they're facing? What are the concerns they're facing? And how do we create content that will solve those for their audience? A lot of like the misconception when clients hire us for social media, or, I do a lot of free intro calls just to kind of let them pick my brain and understand what this would look like for them. A lot of the misconception is people want to see what they want to see on their social media, like our clients. But what they have to understand is it really isn't about what they want to see. It's about what their audience wants to see and read and interact with. And getting that point across is actually a very big struggle that people don't realize, because as humans, we want what we want. That is a natural human emotion, human reaction to stuff, but it's not an accurate way to go about your marketing.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think that's very similar to a brand who is saying this product is helpful for this reason, but maybe that's not why people are buying it. I think a great example of that, I shared this or I read this somewhere maybe 5-6 years ago, but people create products sometimes what they think the audience, based on what they think the audience is, when in reality it's not who the audience is. Great example of that is whiskey stones. Anybody who drinks, most people who drink bourbon and or whiskey, and that could be Scotch, Irish whiskey, bourbon, whatever, I don't think they're buying those stones for a couple reasons. One is they actually are intending to drink it neat, or if they are putting ice in their drink, instead the whiskey stone is supposed to replace that, they are doing that maybe intentionally because it cools it down, but it also changes the flavor profile. As you add water, it will open up more tasting notes. And so even the whole reason why stuff isn't always pulled directly from the barrel is it changes the flavor profile. You add water into stuff. So like that is an example of a gift that people are getting for people that drink whiskey. So the intention of that product really is, someone that drinks whiskey or bourbon, you should get them this product. That is the ideal audience. The people who have those, I can almost guarantee they don't stick around, or maybe they're just not utilizing it. They're not all in fans. Like they're not thinking about it the way. They're just like, yeah, I'll put some in because I want it to cool down. But I think the people who really are whiskey and or bourbon drinkers, I don't think they're utilizing those products.
Oh, I think there's two types of audience, if not more, two types of audiences from out there, to be honest. My husband has whiskey stones. It's funny you say that. He got them as a gift, and I don't think he's ever used them.
Boom! My anecdotal point was proved.
I was just thinking, we just moved into a house we built, 2.5 years ago now. I don't know where they're at. I don't know. I haven't seen them in the freezer. I know when he first got them, he kept them in our freezer. I still don't think he ever used them, but the intention was there. He doesn't use them though. But for whiskey stones, you could probably find 2 or 3 different audiences. And I think there's an audience even in there. And this is just where a professional can kind of think a little more creatively about this. But there's an audience out there that likes the aesthetic of them too. They feel like it looks fancy, it looks expensive, like this is what I should be doing. When in reality, that's just not the case either. So that's interesting. Definitely perspective on audiences. And we dig into buyer personas for our clients. And a lot of times we've even had a client before say, well, I don't want to see these. This doesn't matter to me. No, it absolutely does matter to you. What's the thinking behind their purchasing and stuff like that. So definitely all great points.
Yeah, it's challenging to change someone's perception because of what they've been grounded in or what they feel like is most important to them. If your audience is engaging with something and they like it, then I think you go with that. If a term that you're converting on doesn't feel like this is not a term that's relevant to our product, but you're converting on it, like on the Amazon side, you don't have to put it in your title, but put it in the back end of the search terms and on your listing and advertise on that term. If it's relevant, it's relevant. Maybe that's not what you want to be known for, but we don't get to decide what people search. Amazon probably has some control because of type aheads and things that they know other people are searching. So you start to type in, iPhone, they'll start giving you that type ahead of what they think you should be typing. And so people will go with that. It's also localized based on what you're used to searching too. But we don't get to determine what people search. So lean into what is working or what you think is working.
Yeah, and I'm not overly well versed in Amazon outside of my shopping problem that my husband just loves about me.
That's a common thing. Just so you know, you're not alone in that, Kimber.
It's so bad. I always like to tease about it because my mom passed away when I was young and he never met her. She had a shopping problem. Like looking back as an adult now, I'm like, it's genetic. Understood. He does.
Thank you, Mom. I appreciate you passing that on.
Thank you to my mom, the TikTok sound. Yes. But it sounds like Amazon is very similar to what we face on the social media side in general. There's an organic way to kind of help, I shouldn't say skew, but help with social SEO, help people find your product. You're putting it in the back end and meta descriptions and titles and stuff like that. That same concept is also true for organic social media. And this is one thing we're exploring as a company right now, or I should say as a department. We're going to be focusing some social media efforts on what I will call social SEO. So there are ways you can put, alt text and stuff. You can name images. You can put descriptions when you're posting a post of that image or whatever, graphic you're using to help it be more searchable on social media, because more and more now people are actually going to social media or Amazon and searching for search results. I generationally did not know this was a thing. So I am an elder millennial. My team doesn't let me forget that. I have a few that are well over a decade younger than me, and I lean on them for a lot of information because social media is like their life.
It's a totally different perspective.
Oh, it's so different. Like I grew up as it was up and coming, so I'm familiar with it and I can keep up with the technology, but not in the way someone who's 24 years old can.
So would you have been in college when Facebook was just coming out?
Yeah. So Facebook came out late in my high school years, and they didn't teach social media in college when I went to college. This is a funny misconception that I get teased about a lot. They're like, didn't they teach you this? I'm like, no, it was not a thing. I don't think there was really ads managers.
There was none. Oh, not at all.
No, like I graduated high school in 2008 and just going to college, like it just wasn't a thing. So I'm mostly self-taught, for the most part when it comes to that. But yeah, it's a wild ride to understand how the new generations search. Like one of my employees, Maria, had told me once, she's like, yeah, I just go to Instagram and search my question. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, if I need an answer, I go and search it. I'm like, you don't Google it? Like that is the thing. I Google it. I Google everything. But the generation under me doesn't. So tailoring to those searches, whether it's Amazon, Instagram, Facebook, is extremely important with how you set that up. And a lot of people don't know that part of a social strategy to do that effectively either.
I think that's really smart. And knowing who your audience is super crucial because you need to meet them where they're at. And if you look at app usage across different generations, boomers use Facebook most, but they still will use Instagram. Like the more hip ones will use Instagram. Like I've seen some people that my wife's looking at on Instagram and I'm like, they're on Instagram? She's like, oh yeah, like she's super with it. Then you move into a Gen X, which is more, I think there's some Facebook, but also Instagram. Millennials are very Instagram focused. And then you start to get into Gen Z and now even Gen Alpha, which is what my daughter is technically a part of. That's like, so it's 2013 and on is Gen Alpha. And the generations go for like 15 years, which I don't quite understand, but I don't know, I guess.
Yeah, there's like some overlap there I don't quite understand, but yeah, and we have a good mix of that on our team.
Then TikTok is super big with Gen Z and the Gen Alpha crew. And I think part of the reason why they resonate with that so much, it's so fast paced, but they grew up in that. It's a lot like Facebook feels almost like a cruise, compared to TikTok, which is like a speedboat. But those kids in that generation grew up with that. So that probably feels a lot more natural to them than anything else does.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I'm going to go back to my original thought that I'd mentioned earlier. One of the hardest things as a business owner or somebody looking to promote your business, your products on social media, you don't need to necessarily think about what platforms you know well or that you enjoy. Who is your audience? Because I work with a lot of business owners who are around my age, but their audience is older or younger. It depends what you're selling and choosing a platform that works for that. Like if it was up to me, I would totally choose Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Those are my top 3 platforms. I'm also on Pinterest a lot because I love to like cook and garden and stuff like that. And that's where I find all that information.
More Gen Z is on Snap too, which is crazy because that came out
Snap.
when I was coming up in
Yes.
social media. So like I graduated high school in 2004. And I remember my wife saying in college, because she's like 2 years ahead of me, hey, check out this new thing called Facebook. It's for college kids. And I was like, okay, great. So I signed up for it. And I very vividly remember us. This was before ads, before they discovered this. I'm like, there's no way they're making money on this. You could send someone a gift for $1 or $5, but it literally was sending them an emoji gift. Basically, that was it. And you could post, but it would like be posting on your wall. You know, it wasn't like you're putting something out into the feed. It was a little bit different. But the thing that was most comical was poking. I don't know if you remember that,
I
but
forgot about that.
you would,
Yes.
I'm going to poke you. And I'm like, that's so weird, but funny. Now looking back, I'm like, I don't even want to know what I would have posted on Facebook. It would be 15
I love when my
years.
memories pop up from 2008 or something. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, what is wrong with like 20 years ago me? Not quite 20 years, I guess. But yeah, no, it's wild, the change in platforms. And now we're starting to see, I don't know if you've noticed this, so Snapchat is catching up really fast. Snapchat was something I used particularly with a few friends who lived out of state because it saved data to send pictures that way to keep up on each other's lives. But now we have like video feeds and all this, like, and it's all coming to, you know, fruition over the last like 6 months or so. There's a huge increase. We're even having clients ask about it, and I'm like, I thought Snapchat was dying out. I'm not gonna lie, you didn't hear about Snapchat a year ago, and
Same
now
with
it
Pinterest
is.
too, right?
Pinterest, it went out, and now it's coming back really strong. But even, I don't know if you remember MySpace. Do you remember MySpace?
My band had a MySpace page, so yes, I do remember MySpace very
I love
well.
our MySpace days, but I always tease that was the beginning of cyberbullying. Your top 5 friends. Like, if that's not a way to burn somebody and to hurt their feelings online, like
Sure.
it was like cyberbullying in the beginning. But now Instagram's allowing you to, or certain users, to add music to their profiles. I'm like, so we're bringing back features from the past is what's happening now. It's just like fashion. It all comes and it all goes, and then it'll come back again.
My
It's
daughter
gonna-
this morning was saying she likes baggy jeans. I'm like, that's so weird because it was skinny. Then
Jinko
maybe it was kind of, yeah, I had a pair and I look so stupid in them. Hers aren't like that. They're just more like normal leg, not the like skinny jeans that we've.
But wide leg jeans are coming back. Yeah, and I own all skinny jeans, and my kids tell me all the time I'm outdated. I'm like, I can't keep
At this
up, and I
point,
don't like
at
it
this
anymore.
point, it doesn't matter. You're
No,
good.
it really doesn't anymore.
You've got enough knowledge to get you where you need to go. You don't have to be in on the fashion stuff, which some of that, I think it's hard to decipher what is really going to be ongoing and what is really just a quick trend. And so it's hard to know. So sometimes you jump on something. You brought up something earlier, and you jump on it and you test it, basically what I was going to say. And you brought up something earlier that a lot of this is just we've got the same knowledge, but we're able to test and go and look at things. One of the biggest, let's just call it, lies of the agency world, I think, on the Amazon side, we are just the smart, and this is probably anywhere, we're just the smartest, we know the most, and we're so technically savvy. That could be true, but every time you start an ad campaign on Amazon, you're testing. You don't know how well
There's
it's
a learning
going to
period
work.
with everything.
And if you have seen enough campaigns, you know certain campaigns are going to perform better in the beginning versus others. A great example would be if you are wanting to rank, the biggest differentiator, I believe, between Amazon and Google or social media or anything like that, when you get a sale on your organic listing or a paid listing, it all contributes to the organic visibility of your product listing. And that is huge. So if you want to rank on a term like organic soap and you have a brand new product, you want to run a campaign that's targeted on that term. If you look at that's a super generic term. It is something that's going to take a while for you to get visibility. If you run that and in 2 weeks you're like, oh man, my ROAS is 0.5, kill this campaign. You don't know what you're doing. Maybe you shouldn't have gone with organic soap in the first place because it's a super generic term that you're probably not going to win on depending upon your brand. But if you cut that campaign way too soon in 2 weeks, one, if you're just looking at ROAS, you're falling short because the goal is not to on those kinds of campaigns is not necessarily to have a high ROAS, it's to improve your organic visibility. So one of the metrics you should be tracking is, where are we showing up organically in search results? Are we seeing improvement? And if you are not using that as a guidepost, you don't know if it's going to work until you actually put it out there. Like, this could be super relevant, but maybe it just didn't perform well, or we don't have the cash to focus on this term, so we're going to focus on another term. But if you don't know that going in, and you're coming at it from a place of pride of, we're just the smartest and the best, we know all this stuff, don't take a little bit of humility and say, really, it's all very controlled experiments. Now, it's not like we think it's not going to perform at all, but we believe all the research we've done shows us this is going to work well. Let's test it. Let's see how it goes and measure it over time, but not cut it off too short. And so that, I think, is super sage advice to people. If someone's coming from a place of, we're just the best and the smartest, that could be true in some cases, but also that can blindside you because you don't really know what's happening all the time, and things will inevitably change.
Well, and people can't predict algorithm changes or search changes, or like, there's so many changes that we don't see, even as professionals who work in this day in and day out. And sometimes clients, fail to kind of see and understand that. We are just professionals who can use logic and our best understanding of stuff to do our best, but there is always going to be a testing period. And there should always be a minimum testing period, and there should always be consistency. You can't just throw up, especially with influencer marketing. This is new to us. We just launched influencer marketing for our clients in July of this year, actually. And one thing people fail to see is they think they're going to throw up one post with one influencer that's got 500,000 followers, and they're going to see instant return, instant follower growth. Consistency is key no matter what you're looking at. Amazon, influencer marketing, TikTok, PPC ads. It really doesn't matter. If you're not consistent, what did I read the other day? I think it's like 4.6 touch points is what somebody has to have to actually make a decision or do something. So that's a really important thing for people to understand too, that after 2 or 3 months, you might not see exactly what you're wanting to see as far as results, but you have to give it more time than that. Otherwise, you're never actually going to know.
One of the complaints that a lot of brands I've heard, at least in my arena, is, of course, I know it takes time. Like, that's starting to come around, but they're like, we're still not seeing any results. So I think it's important, and I would love to hear your perspective on the social side. I think it's important that you say, look, this is going to take time. We estimate it's maybe going to take 4 months to see improvement. And what does improvement look like? Do we have a KPI for that? And I think it can be very easy if you don't set that, to then say, either the brand to say, this isn't working because of what we think we should be measuring, or the agency or the service provider saying, or even the person internally, it is working because of what I'm measuring. And so you have to set that from the get-go and then measure up against that. But also, you can set a KPI, not hit it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing a bad job. It could just mean some of the things that we inferred didn't end up being true. Like, hey, this was more of a competitive term than we expected it to be. And that doesn't need to be something that you necessarily take personally, like, I'm bad at this. It just means, hey, there was more to this than we initially thought. Now we know, and we can make a decision together as a team. But that feels like an expertise. It can feel like an expertise error. Oh, I missed this or you missed this because you should know everything. My job is not to know every single thing on Amazon. It's to know how things fit together, to look at what's going on with your brand, and then make decisions based on that because of what I know on the Amazon spectrum. But that feels like knowing what you're going to measure is super crucial with a client. And that gives them hope in that time period of, it's going to be 6 months. Well, what are we measuring in that time period to make sure we're headed in the right direction?
Yeah. And I can't agree with you more. I will say one of the biggest things we struggle with for organic social media is not only proving the value of it because it's organic. For PPC, we can go after conversions and sales, stuff like that. For organic social, our main KPIs, which we have in all of our kickoff slides with our clients and we talk about in our strategy calls with them, we are brand awareness. We're at the top of that sales funnel. So to convince people that we are probably not going to be, driving a lot of sales, people aren't going to see one post on your Facebook page and be like, oh, I need to buy all of these things. It just doesn't work that way. It's a nurturing process. It's hey, you start with us. We make people aware that you exist. And then you do need to have other marketing tactics in place to convert them. You need to have really great SEO and no technical issues on your website. So, your website works well and converts well. You need to have some PPC ads for an additional, touch point. You need to have email marketing to follow up with people. There's so many pieces to that puzzle, but going back to, what you're referencing, the KPIs, what we try to do is say, these are the things that we can track, because there's no great way to track sales and conversions for organic social media. Sure, we can track website clicks, but what they do after that with GA4, it's really, really hard to cut it down, because to me, it's a domino effect. They saw it 3 different places. They might have saw the social media post first and then walked away for a little bit and then saw something else and clicked from there. We might start that ball rolling, but that's hard. So
everyone wants attribution, right? They want to attribute it to them.
Exactly. But we need to start viewing digital marketing as a team effort, because it is multiple pieces of that puzzle. So what we do is we tell them what we track and what that means for them. So reach, impressions, follower growth, that is strengthening your brand awareness, engagement. That means we're driving the right amount of people because they're actually engaging with you. They're, interested in your brand, in your products. So we try to explain it that way. But at the end of the day, it's very hard to convince clients the value of that and the importance of that, because it's a starting point. If people don't know you exist, they can't patronize your business, basically. But at the end of the day, they're like, what's the ROI? And I'm like, I know, right? To me, it logically makes sense, but it really doesn't to a lot of people. And all they want to see is sales, 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 which I agree. You have to have sales to grow your business. I get it. But you have to put in the footwork to do all that. And that starts with your brand awareness. So it's a very difficult thing, to convince people of, the importance of all of this as well. And it's also a very difficult thing to convince people that, sure, we're good at our jobs. We know the ins and outs of a lot of stuff. I can look at the data and tell you what's working and not working and what we should probably try next. But it is never, ever going to be an exact science. It's never going to be, people come to us and say, you should be able to create a strategy that works right now. That's not how that works. That's just like you were saying with Amazon. We're humans. We can try things, and then there's going to be factors we didn't expect or didn't realize, or things change, and then we just have to pivot. But that's where a professional comes in, where they can pivot because they know where to pivot to next.
Yeah, that's a good point. Professional pivoting is good, and that's going to be Cartology, my agency's new tagline. We're professional pivoters. I think if someone says to you, you should know the exact right strategy right now, that's a good sign that they're probably going to be a very challenging person to work with, because they expect you to have all the answers. Nobody has those.
No.
Nobody has all the answers. No one can predict what's going to happen. No one knew when the pandemic hit that e-commerce was going to take off. Everyone thought the whole world was going to shut down. We had clients who wanted to pull all their ad spend. I said, don't. Everyone else is going to do that. Keep spending. It's going to be an opportunity for you to get ahead. And e-commerce grew significantly until it didn't. And then it started to see a decline in growth that people were not expecting. So you can try to anticipate, but I think projections are almost always wrong and are not intended to be right, but just for a guide path to go forward.
I still think we're living in the marketing world anyways. We're living in the aftermath of COVID, which a lot of people don't understand. So COVID hit, and like you said, everybody went digital. We had to. And some of that stuck. I still do most of my shopping online. I order my groceries because I have 4 kids. I'm just busy. It's just easy for me. There's other factors too we have to consider. And that gets into the buyer persona. Where are they at in life? What are they doing? Why are they doing it? However, now everything's kind of opened back up. And those people that really prefer in-person shopping or don't prefer digital kind of went back to in-person too. So now we saw this huge spike in digital, online shopping, online this, and people were so happy with their results. Our agency growth was crazy during COVID.
For sure.
And now our growth is still good, but I think the expectations of clients did not go back to what we saw pre-COVID. They saw the COVID expectations of online sales and web traffic and stuff like that. But now that we're getting back to being open and we're losing some of that online traffic, people aren't considering that. They're like, no, but in 2021, I made this many online sales. I should do that now too. But that's not the case, because again, the economical landscape has changed as well. And that's something people also have to consider. And I just don't think they do. I think we're getting back into another new normal now. And we're going to have new normals every 5 years based on stuff, the economy, pandemics, whatever it is, trends. But it's definitely been an adjustment in the last year for digital marketing in general, I think.
I really noticed 2023 for sure was a change for a lot of brands, because they just started to see a decline. There'd been a lot of people that came into the space, and so that created more competition. That's sometimes harder to know or tell. How many new brands, net new brands have come into your space in the past 3 to 4 to 5 years, in any
A ton of
case.
small businesses, startup businesses, they wanted to hop on the e-commerce bandwagon, which
Yeah.
is great. But again, it drives competition, which makes it harder for everybody involved to have the high traffic and the high sales and stuff. But those are factors people need to consider and understand as well. We're not just making that up as marketers.
Right. Or you're just really good at making stuff up and you can sell it really well. But I'm guessing probably it's the former. I think also people have dealt with a lot of BS, and so they've heard that it takes time or whatever, and so they hear that, and that just brings back a flood of PTSD from the past agency they work with. It's like it takes time, and you're like, all right, well, we're about 7 months in, we've invested $100,000, and we're not really seeing growth. How much time does it take? Like, not everyone's going to be that patient. Some people are, of course, going to be less patient, but you have to set the expectations and then help people to see that path in the journey. Because if they don't see any kind of vision, where the vision, what is the Bible verse of where there is no vision, people cast off restraint or they perish. Like, you have to give people a vision to actually see where they're going to go.
Yeah, and one thing I tell my team when we're doing our monthly marketing reports, which we're working on right now because they go out mid-month for the previous month, one thing I always tell them is make your suggestions on what to try next if something's not going, quite as we had planned. But don't just give your suggestion, give the why. Because we have to understand and get on our clients' level at some point too that they hired us as professionals. They might not automatically trust us though. They might think we can do our job, but that they don't know us personally. They don't know our experience. They don't know what kind of results we absolutely can have for them. So we have to prove that every step of the way to them. So instead of saying, hey, I recommend we do a little more paid promotion because that, the little bit we did last month really encouraged some account growth or higher engagement rates. Give them the reason. I'm recommending this because this, and this data shows me this. Like, explain where your logic is coming from, and they're more likely to trust you and be patient with you as we work through those first 6 months of a learning period and trial and error. But if you just flat out tell people, we're going to try this next, they're going to be like, no, I don't want to do that. We get told no a ton until we explain our reasoning and show the reasoning behind it, whether it's data, analytics, a great new article that came out, a new trend that came out. Then it's like, oh, they'll let us try almost anything we want at that point. But you have to back up your reasoning, no matter if you're a professional or not.
There was a book that I read called I think it was High Profit Prospecting, by Mark Hunter. I think it was that book. And he said, if you say because, like, I want to do this thing because, and give a reason, whatever the reason, that there was like I don't know what the percent is. I could make something up, 20, 30% greater likelihood that someone was going to say yes to something that you said because you gave a reason. It's still, I think, just a good idea to say, we want to do this because of this. And it gives people the why. Then they feel a part of it. And it's not just being talked at. Here's my professional advice. But hey, I looked at this information. Here's what this is telling me. Here's what I think we should do and where we go next. What are your thoughts on that? Oh, I'm a part of the conversation now, instead of just talking at them and saying, I'm the professional, I know what to do. Like, there is a more symbiotic relationship, I think, that can be there.
No, people want to feel involved. That's natural human, nature and emotion and the psychology behind it. They want to feel power and understanding over decisions being made that do directly affect them. I mean, not to compare clients to toddlers, but with 4 kids, I've got a lot of toddler experience in my house here. And if I've got a couple of very strong-willed girls. My mom's probably laughing at me right now from her grave because it's karma. I'm sure of it. But if I look at my toddler and say, no, you're wearing this today, what's going to happen? She's going to throw a dang tantrum because it is not her choice. But if I give her 2 choices or a reasoning, hey, you're going to wear this because it's cold out today. It's only 57 degrees. It clicks in her mind and she's like, oh, mom's just trying to, keep me warm. I can't wear a tank top when it's 57 out. But that reasoning changes our reaction, our emotional reaction to stuff. And that's the same with clients. They don't want to feel like they're being bullied around and told what to do. They want to be part of the decision-making and understanding of what's going on.
I think you can also, that's very well said. And to layer on top of that, there are always options. Mm-hmm. I would have people on my team sometimes say, okay, well, this client is seeing decline because they pulled off on ad spend. Like, they only have one option. It's to spend more. And I'm like, okay, that's actually not true. They have multiple options. You have to present those options to them so that they can see, here are what my options are. Hey, you have 2 options right now. One is to put spend back to the level where it was because we were seeing growth. Or two, keep spend down and let's expect to see ad sales go down, organic sales go down, and also your organic ranking go down. Which one of those do you want to do? Seems like a no-brainer to me, but that will also give you insight into where the client is sitting like, well, we just wanted to keep spend down. Okay, well, why is it you want to keep spend down? Is there something else that's going on? Like there's an opportunity to get more problem information, to your point, then you can create a solution behind that.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
You said something that I thought was interesting that I want to make sure we get to, which is there is strategy on the social media side, which is SEO work and then influencer work. And SEO seems like has always been a long game strategy, but more long game now than ever because it feels like it takes time for that long game stuff to actually be picked up. I know it's that way with Google. Not an expert in that field by any means. Same probably goes on the social media side. Influencer marketing, though, has been hot and growing for, let's say, the past 5 to 7 years. Is there a tipping point where maybe influencer marketing stops being as effective as it has been? And do you feel like maybe we've reached that already?
I think about this daily because influencer marketing was very popular around the end of 2022, super popular in 2023, started out very strong this year. And I think it is still strong, but I feel like it's starting to wane a little bit. And I don't have research or anything to back that up, just from what I've seen. And influencer marketing is one of those things that, do I think it's completely going to drop off? No, I really don't, because social media is not going to drop off. A lot of people always ask me, is social media going to be relevant at this time next year? And I think absolutely, because it's growing in popularity with digital marketing, with all the ads and stuff like that. But with influencer marketing, this is actually one of those full circle situations I was talking about earlier with fashion. So the reason I think it's so hot and it's still pretty popular right now, and it will continue to be popular, is that it brings authenticity. So I don't know if you remember back in the 90s, I specifically remember going shopping with my mom. We went to see her. She needed a new vacuum cleaner. And what would I do?
Remember that.
I would hop on Amazon and probably read reviews and stuff, even though I know the reviews on Amazon can also be kind of stacked a little bit in a way. But she'd go there. The sales guy knew the ins and outs of every single vacuum cleaner they had on the shelf there. And what did he do? Pulled out dirt of his pocket, dropped it on the floor, and said, "Here, test it out." Right? It's like a personal.
Ooh, that's very smart. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember this because I'm like, oh, she got to try out and see which one she liked better. And he had recommendations because he knew those pros and cons of every one of them. So it almost came, even though she didn't know the sales guy, as a personal recommendation based on information. Well, then we got to the digital era over here, and it was, some digital billboards, but paid ads and stuff like that. And you're just taking the word of who? A designer who created the ad, a PPC person who created the ad. Like there's no actual recommendation or information or experience to back that up. Enter, back into even further into the digital era here, people stop trusting people. Like nobody trusts anybody anymore on the internet specifically. I mean, look at all the spam and the, stuff that's out there right now. So what we got into with influencers was back to the personal recommendation again. My mom didn't know the salesperson. We don't personally know the influencers, but because they show the product, they use the product, they show you the texture, they talk about it from a real human perspective, it all of a sudden became a little more personalized again, a personal recommendation. So I think that's why influencer marketing got so hot so fast, is because people stopped trusting the internet. That's just all there is to it. To answer your question, do I think it's waning off a little bit? I do, but not significantly. I think it's still a growing trend, and it's going to continue to be very strong as long as it's utilized properly. Again, you can't have an influencer throw up one post, hope that it works, hope that it drives some sales. It takes consistency. It takes multiple, views of that, touch points, different, talking about the product in different ways, because a product could serve multiple audiences, and just one video is not going to capture all of that either. So I still expect it to grow through the end of this year and next year. But I think it's going to grow a little bit slower because it was almost like a trendy thing too.
I feel like what we're saying here is that brands are kind of like Veruca Salt. I want a goose that lays golden eggs for Easter. Like everyone wants the golden goose egg. They want that thing that is just going to crush it. And I did not rehearse that line before, by the way. I think I did pretty well. It was a pretty good British accent.
Yeah,
maybe not so. I'm not British, so I can't really judge that. But there's no silver bullet. There's no golden goose egg unless you just hit it the exact right time or for the exact right reason. And that's just so rare. That's like looking and saying, I want to be the next $1 billion company. That's really hard to plan or do. The Facebook is a great example. Mark Zuckerberg didn't know. He knew maybe it was going to be big. He didn't know Meta was going to be what Meta is now. There's no way you could have forecasted that.
Does anybody though? Like they can have hopes and dreams, but does anybody actually know? Probably not.
Well, no. And that's people will say, I saw this, I manifested this. I'm like, okay, yeah, but really, like, you don't know what market conditions are going to be like. There's only so much that you can actually see, and you have to test and figure it out. And it was the right time. It was the exact right time. There are also other things that could impact that. Like I was reading about how Google has some of these antitrust things that have come out. They're going to have to start, I think, splitting up some of their ad business or other things because they have too much dominance. The reason why Google, what's that?
It's a monopoly. Yeah.
It's a monopoly. Well, the reason why I read into that article, and it talked about how right around the time when Google was up and coming, Microsoft had a big antitrust suit because all their, I think, devices were forcing people to Internet Explorer, like they didn't have choice. So they had to remove that from a lot of their devices as the default. Well, that gave Google an entrance. There's no way Google could have known that was going to happen. You know what I mean? Like it takes great timing sometimes, and we can't plan that out. But brands want to see a silver bullet, and there's no silver bullet. And to your point, it takes a lot of combined strategies for things to work. I've read the ROI Genome, which is like Analytics Partners project, that said 49% of display ads that happen on Amazon, the sales that result from that actually happen off Amazon. Okay? Well, that means that what you see on Amazon is not always going to be that ROAS. It might show up in store, and you have to be thinking about that combined. And I think people are starting to see that, but they're just not quite fully there of understanding how those things talk together. And I don't think there's really a seamless way of pulling all that stuff together. You just have to look at those things holistically and say, this saw growth, this didn't. Okay, why would that be? And then look at the bigger picture.
It's more correlation, versus anything, because there's no great way of tracking. And that's what we struggle with the most. Again, going back to proving the value of organic social media and stuff like that. It's very difficult to do sometimes because they could see it on social media first, but we would probably never know it. And there's no way to necessarily track that. And to your point that you had stated earlier too, with Amazon ads versus organic, if your listing is optimized well for searches, if you make a sale off of an ad, it also boosts your organic search results because people are searching it, they're buying it, stuff like that. Same thing for social media in some context. I mean, I don't directly know how paid ads and organic go together, but what I do know, if you're thinking about like the psychological meaning behind the buying process with somebody, if they see an ad and they click on it and they're like, I kind of like it. And then they go to check out their platform, but their platform has no reviews, no active posts, no information. Like it looks spammy then because people are like, oh, wait, like they're paying to get in front of people, but they're not actually active with their audience and community. That can be a red flag to people. I know someone was telling me recently when they were researching, I think it was photographers for their wedding, they would find them on Google and then they'd go look at their social media. And if their social media wasn't active, they were off the list. That was it, because there was no active portfolio. It could have been the best photographer in the state they were in, but it goes to your brand reputation, and people don't understand how important or make or break that could be. But can I correlate that back to sales? Not necessarily. We just have to understand logically that's how it works.
I love that. I think it's a great place to end this today, although there was a lot of knowledge, I will say, and a lot of good insight into what's going on. I just think these digital spaces are, the nature of them is to change quickly, and so we just have to be aware of that and be okay to say, hey, let's test some stuff and see what works. Sometimes we're going to get some wins. Sometimes we're going to get losses, and as humans, if we're expecting everything to be a hit, maybe we need to change expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. If you
Kimber,
don't try, you don't know.
If you don't try, you don't know. If you want people want to find you and find out more about what you're doing, where should they go? Should they be looking at phone history of you looking on Amazon and buying products? Should they maybe look for you around a harem of toddlers? Where should people find you if they want to know more?
If there's a group of children, I'm probably there, guys. I mean, I am a toddler wrangler at this point in life. No, so if you go to smartsites.com, you can navigate to like our company page and meet the team, and my email is directly on my profile page. You're more than welcome to reach out to me via email, contact me. I do 15-minute complimentary consultations just to let people pick my brain on what they're doing, not doing, how we can help them potentially, and again, I've got a lot of experience in marketing in general. I've worked in all areas from web and SEO to social media and stuff. Like, I'm happy to advise anywhere I can and just, let you pick my brain in general. So our company website's probably the best route to go. And even if you do a generic contact form on there, you can put the message you're trying to get a hold of me. Those get forwarded directly to my email as well.
Awesome. Well, you heard it from the source. If you want to know more about what Kimber's doing, go to smartsites.com. We'll also link to a lot of stuff in the bio of this, or the description of this, so people have access to what you're doing. But take her up on that 15-minute consult. I think a little bit of insight from someone can go a long way. But that's all we have today, people. That was it. So you don't got to go home, but you got to get out of here. So we're out. Peace. All right. That was the show. What did you think? That was the longer game. We would love for you to share the show with other people and to leave us a review of the show. So go to iTunes, go to Spotify, even go to YouTube, comment, leave a review, and share this on any social channels that you are active on and wherever you have influence. We want to share this story and stories like it to as many people as possible. Do you have a compelling story and do you want to come on the podcast and talk about it, and you're in the retail industry? Then go to thelongergame.com, fill out a form, and we will contact you about coming on the show. You can find us on any social channels: Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and you can go to our website, thelongergame.com, to actually read all of these episodes in blog form in text, because we know not everyone's going to listen. This podcast is brought to you by my agency, Cartology. We are a customized, done-for-you service agency that helps brands win on Amazon. It is super complex selling on the Amazon marketplace. We help simplify that for you. This podcast is also brought to you by Podcastify Me. They are a full-service podcast production company that designs podcasts around people who are paid for their advice. That is coaches. If you want someone to help create, strategize, and distribute your podcast to the masses, go to podcastify.me to find out more. I've so enjoyed that you've been a part of the conversation and that you've given of your time to hear these people's stories. We'd love for you to share. If you want to find out more, just go to thelongergame.com. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay blessed. And until next time, cheers.